Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Biology in the Basement, the end of the year review. So, today we're going to talk about the human body with our focus on homeostasis. But, of course, before we begin, we must have a fact of the day, and that is just a very simple one. It turns out that the window sill, right, that you're looking at on the inside, the ledge called the windowsill, is only on the inside. On the outside, it's not called a windowsill. It's called a window stool. Didn't know that. Learn something new every day. So, homeostasis, what is it? It's a cell's happy place. It's where cells want to be. It's the proper amount of oxygen, the proper amount of glucose, lots of nutrients, amino acids that they need to do their jobs, the right temperature and pressure and conditions, as well as all of their waste products being taken away from them and not building up to toxic quantities. Right? Why? Because this is how cells work their best. I mean, think about it. You do your best when you've had a full belly or at least something good to eat. Maybe, you got a drink in front of you, you're well rested, you had some time to play with your friends and interact with people, and now you're like, okay, good. I can just sit down and just get to my work, right? All of your external needs have been met so that now you can just get to work, right? And so that's what the body tries to do. It just tries to keep all of the body's cells happy so that they can work at their tip-top shape. And it is all simply by stimulus and response. It recognizes things inside the body or outside the body, and it makes the necessary changes. Okay. Now, we have now come back to our going small and getting bigger, right? We've taken a little diversion here with genetics, evolution, and the diversity of unity of living things, but we stopped at the cell, and now we're going to talk about cells making up tissues, which make up organs, organ systems, and an organism is a collection of all these different body systems, and that's how we went through the unit on the human body was system by system, right? We talked about the digestive system, how it breaks down food into those small molecules, right? We want food to be small enough so that it can get into cells, right? It needs to be absorbed into the bloodstream so it can be absorbed into cells. That was the purpose of digestion, right? Getting nutrients like amino acids and glucose and lipids and things like that into the cells. And we looked at all the parts. And we talked about the respiratory system, how its job was to get oxygen into the blood so it can diffuse into the cells, right? The two main things that you need, right? Food and oxygen and water, right? They all come through the digestive and the respiratory system. That's why I liked to talk about them first. The next system that we talked about was the circulatory system. Now that we've got oxygen in, now that we've got nutrients in, what do we do with them? We must circulate them. We must get them to all the cells of our body. The heart pumps them through tubes, which we call blood vessels. They travel away from the heart through arteries. They come back to the heart through veins, but they exchange their nutrients at these small blood vessels called capillaries in places called capillary beds, where these nutrients can be exchanged through simple diffusion, right? You fill your bloodstream with the good stuff, it diffuses in, your cells produce lots of the waste products, they diffuse out. And so blood is full of the good stuff and the bad stuff, but it's also full of red blood cells that carry that oxygen and CO2. It's full of white blood cells of all different kinds to help fight pathogens in the blood. It's full of platelets to help clotting of the blood. the fluid portion of the blood, as you know, is called plasma, right? Where all of the other dissolved gases and nutrients and enzymes and hormones and other things are just floating in there, right? It's not a suspension. It's not a solution. We refer to it as a liquid matrix of dissolved and suspended particles in your fluid called blood. Pretty awesome stuff. It is technically a tissue, right? It is a group of cells working together. Pretty cool to think of it as a liquid tissue. So, circulation and homeostasis, there's a lot there, keeping the cells happy, giving them what they need at the right levels, as well as helping to regulate body temperature, keeping pathogens out of the blood. You name it, the circulatory system is at the center of it. And one of the side groups on the other end, now that we are done talking about getting stuff in and getting it to cells, well, what happens to those waste products? How do we get them out? Well, we use the urinary system, usually. The kidneys filter the waste products out of the blood. But of course, we also focused on some other excretory systems like your lungs, which get rid of CO2, your liver, which filters a lot of products out of the blood, as well as your skin, which is a great filter. Another one helping to keep the blood clean is your immune system. Right? The immune system uses all kinds of specialized cells, white blood cells mostly, that come from your bone marrow that work together, whether it's infected cells or in your blood, to fight. And they do this through recognizing self and non-self, and that is on their receptors. Right? They can look at receptors on cells. White blood cells will say, oh, you're part of this body. Or wait, those aren't receptors that we recognize. It's time to engulf you because you are a pathogen. Another important concept is the vaccine. A vaccine is very important, as we know. We're waiting for one as we watch this video right now. They're making one in the process. And to all of those people who are anti-vaxxers, this is what the world looks like without one vaccine. Imagine if we just stopped all the vaccines that we gave our children. There would be very few humans left on our planet. Anyways, vaccines work in a very simple way. The vaccine is simply a weakened or dead or just the cell receptor or a part of the pathogen itself. Just enough of it to stimulate the immune response so that you are prepared for it when it comes in full contact with you. Right? So when it comes to this coronavirus, obviously they're trying to find the smallest amount of the coronavirus that they can inject into a human that will stimulate the immune response without giving them any symptoms whatsoever, but creating the antibodies so that they can fight it off if they are exposed to the coronavirus in the future. And there are some companies who are having some positive results right now, but a vaccine is still far away with the trials and production, so we're going to have to rely on our immune system for now. Then we got into the bosses of the body, the nervous system, right? It uses the brain, the spinal cord as its central nervous system, and all of its peripheral nerves to do a very simple thing, and that is to receive stimuli and respond to stimuli. It's just any signal from the environment is a stimulus, and any way that you react to that stimulus is a response. I also talk about something called integration, where when you're given information, you just integrate it into your memory. There's no actual aha response of any sort, right? When you're reading a book, You're not just like, wow, oh, cool, yeah. You're not responding to every word or every sentence that you read, right? But you are taking it in. Speaking of which, Dell listened to The Sorcerer's Stone, and then yesterday we watched it, and we've already started to read The Chamber of Secrets. So we're very excited about starting Harry Potter. But I think once we get to Prisoner of Azkaban, it's going to be all over. He's going to get too scared. So it'll be a fun ride for at least one more book. So we can't talk about the nervous system without talking about the neuron. The neuron, of course, is the nerve cell. All systems of the body have cells, but the nervous system has specialized cells that we call neurons because they have a cell body, right, that has all the parts, the nucleus, the ribosomes, and mitochondria and whatever, but it also has a wire running through it, which we call an axon, and that's how we send messages from one part to another. Those messages are called impulses, and they travel through the brain, spinal cord, and all of these nerves. The other boss of the body is the endocrine system. The endocrine system is a system of glands that secrete hormones through the bloodstream. Their job is to send messages to certain cells of the body who have the proper receptors to cause different changes. It's nice to cover the nervous and the endocrine system because they're both bosses. They both direct cell activities, but the way they do it is a little bit different, right? Where a gland will send a hormone into the bloodstream until it finds its desired cell. Could take a little while, but these are slow processes that are slow changes, much different from the lightning fast impulses that travel through your neurons at light speed. But there are reasons why we need to control things on a quick response or just in a very slow response. One of those examples we looked at was the menstrual cycle. 28-day cycle. It's better to be controlled by hormones than by the nervous system, just because we're coordinating a lot of events to happen on certain days, and the hormones seem to do a much better job of handling it. Same goes for your blood sugar. This was always a Regents question, right? How does the pancreas involve itself in regulating blood sugar? And it does that by releasing insulin. When you eat a bunch of food, your body digests that into large amounts of glucose. You don't need all that glucose. So your body releases insulin that says store some of that glucose for later, lowering your blood sugar so that you don't cause nerve damage or other problems. But also you want to have glucose for later. That is when the alpha cells kick in and they will release that glucose that is in the form of glycogen and release it back into the bloodstream so that you'll have it again. And that'll cover you till you have your next meal and the insulin gets fired again. And that's always a common Regents question because it covers how you handle it when your blood sugar is high and when your blood sugar is low, as well with the diets that the average American has being so high in sugar. Type 2 diabetes is going to be a growing problem in your and your previous generations. And so understanding how this works may help you in case you or someone you know contracts type 2 diabetes. And so here's the other diagram you can look at. The last unit that we covered was reproduction, how through meiosis we create sperm and egg cells that may join through fertilization, which happens in the fallopian tube. The fertilized egg goes to the uterus, known as the womb in its simple terms, and that will grow into an individual, right? Ovaries are the gonads that create the eggs. Testes are the gonads that create the sperm, right? And they join through fertilization to create a zygote. Some other things, right, is when the baby is inside, the fetus must be nourished. What's cool is that the placenta can nourish the fetus when mom's blood and baby's blood never mix. You and your mother may not have the same blood type, and that's okay because your blood and mom's blood never mixed. The placenta is a protective membrane that forms a reservoir for where the nutrients leave mom's blood, pass through the placental membrane into a reservoir that your body picks up and takes it through the umbilical cord to your body when you were a fetus. Um, and so that's how that works. And so this is a great way of blocking things like bacteria and viruses and other things so the baby doesn't get sick during development. Problem is the placenta can't block smaller chemicals like drugs and alcohol and things like that. And that's why you don't take drugs and use alcohol while pregnant, because those chemicals can pass through the placental membrane and cause organ problems, because this is when your organs are developing at a very high rate, and consuming toxins during this time can cause problems with organ damage or just poor organ development, because this is where your body as a mother needs to be running at its most tip-top condition so that it can produce the most healthy baby with the strongest organs, and introducing chemicals and things like that. No bueno. So, a disease is simply a disruption in homeostasis. Of course, we talked about the genetic disorders. We talked about pathogens that can also cause problems, as well as toxins in the environment, which will be our segue to one of our last units, ecology and human impacts. But we will sign off for now until we get to that one. So, have a good one.